Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. We're here for another morning briefing show, talking through all the latest Celtic news and events ahead of a match against Partick Thistle this weekend. We've got Josh McCafferty today joining me today, and we're going to try and get some of your questions in from the live chat as well. I know we've not done that for a while, so if you do have any questions, any burning Celtic questions, that you want us to cover or talk about, or anything about the channel, anything in general, we're open to questions today, so certainly fire them in and I'll answer as many as I can. Before we get started, I do have to, give word to our sponsor. Our new sponsor this week, it's Simply Furniture, located in Hillington, Glasgow. Simply Furniture is an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience in furniture retail, they meticulously source only the finest pieces curated for quality, comfort and timeless design. From elegant sofas to statement dining sets, their hand-picked collections offer exceptional value without compromising on style, and their dedicated team ensures your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. And if you want to see their collection up close, you can visit their showroom, and if you mention the Celtic Way, you will get a special in-store discount. There's links below regarding their website and their socials, so take a look at that as well. Josh, you've not been on for a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, John. Thanks, enjoying all the Champions League football that's been on this week. A shame Celtic aren't in the competition, to be honest. But no, doing well. Enjoyed the match at Rugby Park on Sunday and looking forward to seeing Celtic back in action this weekend.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on Rugby Park in general, Josh? I mean, a lot of people, it's a little bit of an improvement, isn't it? But I think still some issues in the team. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I think Celtic are still a long way away from where everyone wants them to be, from where the manager wants them to be. But I think the key on Sunday was obviously first game back after the international break. Rangers had dropped points on the Saturday, so the key was to just go out and win. Obviously, with a lot of new players starting as well that had not really played together before. But no, I thought Celtic were decent. Sebastian Tenecky's debut was really promising. You don't want to put too much expectation on his shoulders, obviously, because he's still a young player, but he did look really good. Offers something different that not a lot of Celtic wingers have brought in recent weeks and recent months. Marcelo Sirachi, I thought, played the Greg Taylor role pretty well. Left back,
Yeah,
a different dynamic to Kieran Tierney. Really good cross for Daisen Maeda's goal. And then Kelechi Iheanacho shouldering that responsibility at the end to step up and take the penalty was really pleasing to see. So good afternoon. On the whole, I think Michelange Balikwisha, I think there's still some more to come from him. He's obviously not a right winger. He was played on the right, so it's going to be interesting to see how that situation pans out, because Tenekti, I think, has got that left wing spot nailed on at the minute. So just have to wait and see what happens with Balikwisha.
yeah, I absolutely loved that Iheanacho moment, as did everyone, because, well, as we know, like I wasn't happy with his signing, and then for him to just kind of cut through all that with a confidently taken penalty was fantastic for me. I love that. I love seeing that from Celtic players. I love Celtic players who prove you wrong, Josh. Everyone comes to judgments. Everyone has their own biases around players, but it's great when a Celtic player proves people wrong. And obviously, there's a long way to go by an actual, and the full verdict on the signing will come over time. But I do love that. I love when players respond with something on the pitch that makes you think something else about them than you thought previously.
Yeah, it was a really good moment. In terms of him himself, it was really good to see him actually take the responsibility and ask to take the penalty on his debut. Big pressure moment. But he's used to those kind of moments. Brendan Rodgers referenced that after the game. He scored a penalty in the Community Shield final against Man City. And I think he brings something to the Celtic attack that Celtic haven't really had in recent years. And that's a really experienced forward at the top level. He's played in the English Premier League. He's won trophies down there. He's got over 50 caps for his country, but he's not over the hill yet. He's still 28 years of age. I think Brendan Rodgers can certainly get the best out of him this season. I mean, Sunday was only the start, and like you say, the true verdict on him will come in the coming weeks. But if he gets up to speed, I mean, I read your piece, obviously, with his comments from the weekend after the game, and I thought he came across really well in them, actually, in terms of what he was saying. It certainly feels fit at the minute. Obviously, remains to be seen whether he can start games, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how his Celtic career progresses. And yeah, it was a great moment. Yeah, I think his celebration got a lot of people on side as well. I think a lot of people enjoyed that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love scenes like that too. And it's difficult for Tenecte because everyone's just raving about his performance, and it's just like I agree with you. Just like everyone needs to take a little bit of a deep breath and see how he pans out as well. I think I just think Celtic fans have been starved of like an attacking looking player in recent weeks, and so when Tanetti came along and started dribbling at the opposition, it caught the eye. AR saying, can we move on from Sunday? When are the financial results being released in the fans group meeting info? Listen, I get it, AR. I was just wanting Josh's thoughts. I know he's not been on this week, so I was just wanting to see where he sat on Sunday quickly before we get into the rest of the show. And you're right, there is other stuff going on around Celtic, and we will be taking questions throughout today, everyone. So if you want to steer the direction of our chat today, send in your question and I will address it. AR's done that today. So he's asking, when are the financial results being released, and is there info on fans group meetings, etc.? I do have a bit of both here. So in terms of the financial results, it's usually the Friday in this week. So if they don't come tomorrow, I would suggest they've been delayed for whatever reason. There were some rumours of that going around. I don't have firm information on that, but I would certainly, in a normal year, expect them by the end of play tomorrow. And that's not to say they will be released by then, but it's usually this week in September on the Thursday or Friday when they are released. They were released by this time last year, so we are awaiting the financial results. They will show a big Celtic profit again. It will show a lot of cash in the bank again. It will show all of this stuff, profit and player trading, all of this stuff, Josh. And it'll be another, I would say, annoyance of the Celtic sport, just given everything else that's unfolded this summer. In terms of the fan group meeting info, I believe a steering group from the original kind of fan consultation meeting that they had with the open letter signatories, I believe that steering group has been put together. As you can imagine, these things take time and it takes a lot of organisation, a lot of effort, and these guys aren't doing it as a full-time job. They're doing it in their spare time, so it just takes a little bit of getting out there. But I think further communication is expected either today or tomorrow regarding the current status of play with all the fan group stuff. So I realise that's maybe a frustrating answer for you, AR, but that is the reality of it. The financial results are due, I think, tomorrow. And again, I think more communication is due on this fan group stuff. What are you expecting from the outcomes of the financial results, Josh? I think there'll be a lot of complaining at the numbers posted by Celtic again.
Yeah, certainly expecting large profits, again, large revenue, but not a lot of money or much of that revenue and profit spent in the playing squad. And that's what supporters want to see, put their money into the club. You want to see that reinvest in the squad so Celtic can be the best they can be, but they've not. So I think supporters have every right to feel frustrated and feel angry when these financial results come out. Listen, I think people wouldn't be complaining as much if Celtic managed to get through that Kairat Almaty game and then invest in the squad in the summer, but the reality is they didn't. So I think Celtic will get a lot of backlash when they put these results up, and maybe that's why they're delaying it. I don't know why. It's not been out because, like you say, this time last year they were up, but I'm just going to have to wait and see how that unfolds. I'll be really intrigued to actually see how it's spelled, what Peter Law says, what other guys say, and how those comments are reacted to as well.
Yeah, Big Dom saying the interim financials will add fuel to the fire. I would agree with that. Yeah, it also comes with a chairman's statement, so we'll see what Peter Law has to say for himself regarding everything. McLaughlin P asking, why was there no projected accounts released in mid-June? Is that because we had no intention of spending big that summer? That's not really how it works. So essentially, they release an interim report in February for the 6 months up to in the middle of the financial year. Celtic's financial year runs until the 30th of June every year. And then what happens after the 30th of June, they have to collate that. Then they also get their accounts audited, which is why there are a couple of months delay. So they don't release anything just after 30th of June. It does take a while. This is normal. It's not... it's not that they've been sitting on the accounts for 3 months. This is a normal time. And as I say, if it goes on past tomorrow, I would suggest there has been some sort of delay, but we've yet to wait and see. But there was interim results released in February, as I said, and again, it showed that Celtic were well on course to another massive turnover year just due to the Champions League money of last year, etc., etc. So they will be another talking point. So Thomas Burns saying we may have £100 million in the bank after this year's financial results. Are we the only fans in the world who will have a negative response to this? And I guess there's an element of that. I mean, I've said this all along. You want Celtic to be in good financial health, Josh. It's just about using the resources to their maximum. I think if you look at it, even clubs in the Premier League, the English Premier League, have, most of them have nowhere near the amount of money, cash and bank, that Celtic seem to be sitting on. And they can say, it's not with regard to the kind of UEFA rules, etc. This money in the bank doesn't translate to that, but it was revenue in years gone by. So they've not used the revenue in years gone by to an efficient extent, which is why there's been a build up of money.
Yeah, and I think one of the most frustrating things for the supporters is they don't really give a reason as to why they're sitting on this significant sum of money. If they gave a reasonable answer, then I think people maybe wouldn't be as frustrated, but they don't really explain why. And maybe you can say they're saving it for a rainy day, but I think everyone would agree that the rainy day came when Kairat Almaty beat Celtic in the Champions League playoff. So it's very strange. Celtic are very much an outlier in terms of this, in terms of the amount of money they keep in the bank. When you see all the accounts on Twitter and such who know a lot about the financial side of football, and they all agree that it's very strange. But that's what we've been dealing with for the past number of years, and I don't think it's maybe going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, and then obviously as a result of the financial results, an AGM is called, and then that takes place in November, I think, usually mid to late November. And that's sometimes interesting. I think it'll be even more interesting this year, just given all the discussion around Celtic at the moment. So that's the state of play and the stuff off the pitch. And as I say, the fans thing is ongoing in the background. I know it is. And I know that they're putting a lot of work into getting this up and running. I think there'll be some sort of communication in the near future about what this new fan organisation is going to be called. As I say, there is a steering group being set up to guide this new organisation forward, and whatever it takes. I think they're taking a pretty wide breadth across the support with people from different backgrounds and different specialties. So that is all ongoing, and I think that was an inevitable consequence of this summer, is that Celtic fans finally get themselves organised into a more unified group, Josh, and we'll see how successful that ends up being. I know that they're discussing also a range of potential options for upcoming matches too. So I think this is going to continue. I don't think it's going away just on the back of, a 12-minute protest at Rugby Park. I think this is going, as I said, this is going to be a starting point that builds, more and more across the weeks.
Yeah, and it shouldn't go away just because Celtic are 9 points clear at the top of the table and won at the weekend, and things look a bit more positive now on the pitch. Doesn't mean the outlook should shift off it. There's still the exact same people in the building. The club's still being run the same way. So people certainly should still have their grievances, in my opinion. And I think having a recognised fan body, obviously there's a number of different organisations, supporters groups, but having one organised, recognised body that can represent the majority of supporters to the higher ups of the club, I think that'd be massive. And I think it's something Celtic have been crying out for a past number of years, that the fans have a real recognised voice at that kind of level. So hopefully that can be organised in the coming days and months, and then maybe after that we get to see more change. And I mean, we spoke about it last week on the briefing, I think it was, that your biggest fear is if Celtic win this weekend against Kilmarnock and Rangers drop points, and then the focus shifts and everything's rosy in the garden again. That's still not the case, and I think that's good to see.
Yeah. Dougie Sharp asking, just with the money in the bank with regard to UEFA rules, etc. So the UEFA rules are tricky. I don't have it to hand right at the moment, but so essentially Celtic are right. The UEFA rules are relevant if you're in danger of tripping them. Regarding the money in the bank, it's not really relevant because the way UEFA now work it is it's very much tied to annual revenue and squad spend in comparison to that annual revenue. So the money in the bank that's already there doesn't really count towards that annual revenue. So that is kind of what they're talking about. But as we know, Celtic nowhere near tripping it at all, really. Even without Champions League money, I think they would still be well under it at the moment. And even if they had pushed out, and I never bought that UEFA argument because they were trying to sign Dahlberg on the last day, and so if they signed Dahlberg, is that Celtic admitting they were being reckless and suddenly in anger of the UEFA rules? No, that's ridiculous. So the money in the bank isn't directly tied to the UEFA rules, unfortunately. It might have been in years gone by when it was revenue, but it's not revenue anymore. It's just kind of sitting there. And the UEFA rules are split into two things now. It's about overall profit, but it's also about actual squad spend. So there's kind of two levels to the UEFA rules these days. So it's fairly complicated, but ultimately what you need to know is that Celtic are not really in danger of tripping the rules at all. There's plenty of questions coming in here, guys. Thank you. There's two questions about January here, actually, that are both kind of tie in at the same point. William O'Toole saying, given how tired the squad will be come the January window, do you see many players coming in? Was a boy following that up with how much will we actually spend in January? I'm hoping more than the summer window just passed. Again, it's kind of this thing, Josh, where, and I get what was a boy saying. He's talking about how much Celtic are going to spend. It's not really about how much to spend, though, is it? It's about the right players that excite Brendan Rodgers or whoever the manager is going to be long term, coming in to really strengthen for the first team position. I mean, I know Benjamin Negrin's still getting up to full speed and the jury's out on that signing as well. But he was a fairly cheap sign-in, and he's obviously coming in and made a first team impact. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for those players that the manager is engaged with and wants to play consistently, even if they're £2 million or £9 million, you know?
Yeah, money doesn't always buy you quality in football at times. I mean, we've seen that across the city. I think they spent €30 million on players over the summer, and well, look where they are in the table. But I mean, Celtic fans will want to see a level of ambition from the club in the January transfer window, because I don't think there was a certain level of ambition in the summer. So it's going to be big. I think January could be a tricky situation if Brendan Rodgers, and depending on Brendan Rodgers' future. If he's leaving in 6 months, will the board want to commit and give him a lot of money to go out and spend on players when a new manager is going to be coming in 4 or 5 months down the line? It's a very tough one. In terms of actual areas of the squad that will need strengthened in January, obviously you're looking at a right winger. I think that should be the priority. You never know where Celtic are going to be sitting with injuries at that point. Daizen Maeda wants away. Well, he wanted away in the summer. Obviously, maybe his celebration at Rugby Park was maybe told a wee bit of a story. But if an offer came in for him in January, depending on where Celtic are in the league and how they're going, maybe he could be off and you could be looking at bringing in a striker. So yeah, I think the attacking areas still need reinforced. But in terms of what they're going to do and how much money they're going to spend, that's anyone's guess. No one really knows. And I think Brendan Rodgers' future and what happens in that department will have a massive say as well on what Celtic do in January.
That is a tricky one, isn't it? They've got a lot to sort out, I think, before even thinking about January. It's funny, Brendan Rodgers was asked about January in one of his media conferences last week, and he was just like, January? I've not even stopped thinking about this one yet, never mind January. So I think he doesn't want the public speculation about January out there yet, but that's going to be a natural occurrence, unfortunately, for you, Brendan. Stephen J coming in with a super chat. We really appreciate that. Thanks very much. He's saying smash the like button, and of course, we would encourage you to do that. Listen to Stephen. Smash the like button, subscribe, do all those good things that help us do what we do on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. I've got some more questions. We'll turn it to the football a little bit here, Josh. It was struck me that I think Sunday is probably going to be a fair amount of changes to the team, quite a lot of rotation. If you look at the fixture list coming up, it's Partick Thistle, then it's Red Star Belgrade, then it's Hibs, then it's Braga. I think if you're looking at Sunday, you're probably looking at this one as an ideal opportunity to rotate some players, freshen the team up a little bit, allow players to stake a claim into some underperforming areas of the pitch. Wazaboy coming in asking, will Iheanacho start on Sunday? I think I'm pretty confident that he's going to, Josh. So that would seem a natural way to kind of help him build into his Celtic career. I would expect him to be leading the line for Celtic on Sunday.
Yeah, well, you've got, I think it's 5 games in the space of 14 days, if I'm not mistaken. And just in this wee period, you've got 3 games in 7 days. So it's a really tight schedule. And I think Brendan Rodgers is going to have to manage his squad well. I would like to see Nacho get the start. I think he probably will up front, even if it's 60, 70 minutes he gets. I think it's an ideal game for him to come into. No disrespect to Partick Thistle, but look to get on the score sheet, get that confidence, keep it going, and then maybe with a view to seeing what happens, and then whatever the team might pick itself for Wednesday night. But I think there will be a lot of changes to the team this weekend. Colby Donovan will probably keep his place. It'll be intriguing to see what happens with Sriracha and Tierney at left back. But yeah, Iheanacho, I would like to see him starting and hopefully get a goal as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was looking at the Falkirk team, and that's probably the best indicator of how Brendan Rodgers might go about it, because it was also before a crucial European game. Now, Johnny Kenny started that match, but I would expect Iheanacho to now start. Engels started that match. Luke McCowan started that game. Austin Trusty and Dane Murray also started that game. And Viljami Sinisalo started in goals. Now, I would like to see Sinisalo continue as Celtic's Cup goalkeeper. James Forrest started that game as well. So you're looking at, there could be 6 changes here at least for this game. I know that sounds radical or sounds like a big change, but just with the schedule coming up and the fact that there's an away trip and Hibs is no joke, I think, in the league. It seems natural that we'll see 6 changes for me. Just on Sinisalo, you expecting him to come back into the goalkeeping position? It looks like he will be Celtic's cup goalkeeper. What I hope doesn't happen is that Sinisalo plays the last round this round and then Schmeichel comes in for Hamden. I think if you're going with Sinisalo as the cup keeper, I'd like to see him get the full run in the Premier Sports Cup, if indeed Celtic are fortunate enough to get into a final ultimately.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's crucial Sinisalo gets the games under his belt. He showed what he can do last season when he came into the team towards the end of the campaign. Maybe unfortunate to drop out towards the end of the season. But yeah, I think he'll start Sunday, and then it's Brendan Rodgers' decision whether he gets to the semi-finals and the final if like you say Celtic get there. But I think he's a young goalkeeper who has done well already. He seems very vocal. You've seen that in the pre-season friendlies when there was no fans in the stadium. You could hear him shouting a lot and barking away at his defence, and that's what you like to hear. Very commanding. So yeah, excited to see him again.
Pinball asking, is Ralston fit? I don't believe he is. I think he's going to be out for a few weeks, Pinball. He was still in a protective boot as of late last week, and so I don't expect him to be back particularly soon. I think he will be out for a few weeks, and as we know, Alistair Johnston is also out. Alistair Johnston, if you saw yesterday's briefing, you'll know that he gave an interview to Canadian media, one of the Canadian football podcasts that they do, regarding his injury. He says he's making good progress. He's probably ahead of where he thought he would be, but obviously Alistair Johnston's a fair bit away as well, and I don't think you take any risk at all with a hamstring injury. So it looks like Colby Donovan will continue. Josh, you know Colby Donovan fairly well. You covered the B team a lot, and you've seen his progress over the last few years. Made his first start on Sunday. I would expect him to get another start again this Sunday.
Yeah, and it's another good game for him to come into. Celtic are going to dominate the game. He'll get on the ball a lot. But I think as well defensively at the weekend, when he was tested, he did pretty well. A couple of good blocks. I remember one in the second half inside the box and he diverts out for a corner. It was a really good block. And in attack, he showed really good composure at the end of the game to beat his man and put the cross in that led to Celtic winning their penalty. So yeah, hope to see him get another start. I think he will. He's a player Brendan Rodgers likes. Brendan Rodgers talks about it when he speaks about academy players, that you need to have the ability, but you need to have the personality as well. And I think Colby Donovan has that. So yeah, hopefully he gets another start and does well. But I don't think in terms of expectations and what people want from him and expect from him, if he makes one mistake, people shouldn't get on his back. That's maybe one of the things with the supporters and academy players, that if they make one mistake, maybe people say, oh, they're not good enough, shouldn't be seen again, but he'll learn from it, he'll improve from it. And yeah, but I just think maybe don't put too many expectations on his shoulders and let him play his football, and I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was a couple of moments, but yeah, again, it's his first start, so I'm not going to get into the depths of that, but I do want to see him progress, because as we know, he's highly rated within Lennoxtown. McLaughlin P asking, is there 3 nights of Europa next weekend? It's just 2 nights. It's Wednesday and Thursday. It's the UEFA do this now where they have a big launch of their competitions, and so it was the Champions League's turn this week. Next week it's the Europa League's turn, so that's why Celtic are playing on Wednesday. After next week, Celtic will play on Thursday every single match day in the Europa League. But if you're wondering why it's Wednesday next week, then that is the reason. So it goes Partick Thistle on Sunday, it goes Red Star Belgrade away on Wednesday, it goes Hibs at home at the weekend following, and then it's Braga at home the Thursday following. So that's the wee run of games that Celtic have coming up. And there's a match after Braga as well, of course. It's I think I like League Cup because I think you do get a chance to see different type of Celtic team. I think I'm looking for the midfield to be refreshed and looking more. I'm expecting probably, if it was up to me, I would have Engels and Bernardo starting on Sunday just to see what they're offering at this moment. It's important that they're involved. I'd like to see Shin Yamada involved in some capacity, Josh. I don't know how realistic that is, just given that he doesn't seem to be in the reckoning at the moment at all, but I'd like to see him get half an hour off the bench or something. Someone said in the chat, I've lost the comment, but they said it's important that he feels wanted at Celtic if he's going to have any sort of progression at all. And I think that's true. I think if you make a move in the summer, you at least expect to be involved in one of the games where maybe more of the fringe players are involved. And it's a difficult situation for Shun Yamada at the moment, because he just seems to have come to Celtic, a couple of £1 million, and is just kind of not in the reckoning at all.
Yeah, it's the same with Hayato Inamura as well. He came
Mm.
over and there's two left backs ahead of him, and he's been told they'll only really play in games where Celtic see 70 to 80% of the ball. So for the two of the Japanese boys, it's really difficult. But for Shin Yamada, he's obviously not in the European squad, so we know he's definitely not going to be playing on Wednesday night in Belgrade. So maybe that's one of Brendan Rodgers is managing the fitness of the squad. If you bring Iheanacho off on 60, 70 minutes, maybe Shin Yamada can come on, because Brendan Rodgers trusted him enough to bring him off the bench at Ibrox. So I'd like to think he'd trust him enough to bring him off the bench at Firhill against Partick Thistle. But we're talking about all the changes in the team, what Brendan Rodgers might do. I think it's important that Celtic go out and win the game first. As much as you're making these changes, you need it's a cup game. Partick Thistle are in good form. They're doing quite well under Mark Wilson, obviously former Celtic right back himself. So need to go out and win the game and take care of business. The players that are on the pitch, that's their responsibility, and then you can think about maybe bringing on even more fringe players off the bench.
What William O'Toole saying, is it forbidden to think Calmac might be rotated? It shouldn't be, William, but it seems to be. I mean, again, if you look at the Falkirk game, he was one of the consistent starters to start that game. And he played the entire 90 minutes of that game too. He didn't get substituted off. So it seems to be even Daisameda got substituted off after an hour in that one. So it seems to be a forbidden topic. I would like to see, and it's not because I don't like Callum McGregor, and it's not because I don't think he has something to offer to Celtic, but I get that he's got this Iron Man reputation, Josh, but surely at some point you need to manage his game time across the season. And I'm looking at Sunday and just thinking, why are we playing Callum McGregor in that game for an entire 90 minutes? Even if he's on for an hour, surely at some point Brendan Rodgers needs to say, we need to experiment with different options in this midfield.
Yeah, I 100% agree. When you have, I think Celtic have 6 first-team midfielders. Callum McGregor shouldn't be playing these types of games. I think there's a good argument to say he shouldn't even start the game, and you could play Paulo Bernardo or Arne Engels in the sitter role. Because, I mean, that's essentially your backup midfield at the minute is Engels, Bernardo and McCowan. And I think no one would have any grievances if all three of those started the game. And I think Callum McGregor, some of his performances early in the season when Celtic weren't doing too well, for example, the Kairat game, Ibrox, maybe looked a bit tired. And that's because he played a lot of football at the start of the season. So I think resting him for this game, having him back in top form against Red Star in Belgrade on Wednesday night, that would be ideal. But like you say, it's all down to Brendan Rodgers. We don't really know if he's gonna get rested or not. I think he needs it. I think he deserves it. But just have to wait and see what the lineup is on Sunday.
Yeah, Dennis Jameson asking, Pusey, will he ever get a chance? Must be wondering why he's here. Like, listen, this is another strange situation for me. Just everything around it, the noise around it, the rumours around it, etc. And it's a difficult one. And I've started thinking, is this guy ever going to play for Celtic at all before he goes back to Man City? Like, I think that's a reasonable question to ask, given he doesn't even seem to be involved in squads, etc. As far as I know, he's not injured. He's training. He was in training pictures that I've seen recently. And Brendan Rodgers just doesn't have him involved. He said before the international break that we will see the best of him after the international break. But I think Sunday will be a good kind of viewpoint on that, because as I say, it is a match of potential rotation. So if Pusey's not even in the match squad, or he's not in the team or whatever, then people will be asking questions, fair questions, about the status of Jamai Simpson-Pusey, Josh.
Yeah, it's certainly been very strange the way his kind of move to Celtic has been handled. I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, John, that in the initial comments Brendan Rodgers made when Pusey joined Celtic, it was that he can help the team home and abroad. Then he's not even included in the European squad. Very, very strange, not including the last match day squad. And this is even at the minute with Austin Trusty out injured. So, I mean, Pusey moves even further down the pecking order when Trusty is back. So it's so weird. I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester City recalled him at some point, because he will have came to Celtic, I am sure, and everyone said at the time, with an agreement that he would play a certain number of games. We're approaching the end of September and there's no sign, no hint of him getting any minutes. I mean, I don't expect him to play in Belgrade. I then don't expect him to play against Hibs at home unless there's an injury crisis. I think for Pusey, though, Dane Murray's emergence has probably not helped him. I think Pusey would have been earmarked to come in and do the role Dane Murray's doing at the minute.
Yeah.
But Brendan Rodgers rates Dane Murray highly, and I think I would rather see Dane Murray get the minutes than a young lone player from Manchester City. Maybe that's a bit of an old traditional view, but I think You'd rather see your own homegrown players, academy players improve than an academy player from another team. But it's a strange situation. And actually, I'd be intrigued to see how he does when he comes on, because he's a very high rated young player who won the Premier League 2 Player of the Year last season. Manchester City rated him enough to play him in some first team games last season in the Champions League under Guardiola. Strange situation.
Yeah, it is a strange one. Brown Warrior coming in with the big questions here. How much is a bottle of El Dorado up the road, boys? Not my tonic wine of choice, Brown Warrior. So I don't know for sure. I would imagine about £9. So there's the hard hitting journalism for you there. It's someone asking, will we see 2 strikers on Sunday? I doubt it was a boy. I'm not seeing that at all. Brendan Rodgers doesn't seem like he's changing from this 4-3-3 system. I think if he was going to tinker with the formation, he probably would have done it by now, just given some of the chance creation issues in the opening weeks of the season. I've said before, but he did kind of experiment with a back three at Leicester from time to time, depending on opposition, but it doesn't seem to be that he's going to be doing that. I wouldn't be expecting 2 strikers anytime soon, Josh, at all.
No. I think throughout his whole time at Celtic, Brendan Rodgers has always stuck with the 4-3-3 or the 4-2-3-1, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, to be honest. Maybe if Celtic are plunged into an injury crisis, or if they have a European game away from home, might experiment with a back 3/back 5, but I don't see anytime soon.
Yeah. Listen, guys, if you've got any more questions, you've run out of time to get them in before we answer. We've not done questions for a while because I know that everyone was asking where Tony was and everything. I knew that was going to be the flood of questions. We couldn't talk about that situation, etc. We're delighted to have Tony back. He has been on the channel this week if you have missed him. So he was on yesterday with Ryan. He was on myself on Tuesday as well. It's one of those situations where, like, listen, you guys know from your own jobs and stuff, you can't talk about other people at work. It's just not what happens. So, and that's where that we are employed by a company, so there was all that sort of stuff going on. So that's not why we've not done one of these Q&A sessions in a while, but we're happy to do them. AJ asking, do the colour of the Celtic training bibs give away the first team selections? Any ideas? I don't think they do. I've asked this question myself, a time, and I've tried to figure out whether that has any meaning, but I don't think it does, Josh, unless you've got any insight.
I do not have any insight into that one. The only insight I have with the training is the groups that warm up in the pitch and before the games. You can tell who the starting 11 is and who the subs is, but everyone knows the starting 11 by that point anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Rob asking, how do we stay calm with all this going on at Celtic? How do we stay calm? Listen, it's difficult sometimes. I think you saw at times I've been pretty frustrated with Celtic over the last few weeks. I think especially after deadline day, I was very frustrated with how it planned out, just because it was so signposted that Celtic needed to do something in the transfer window this summer. And at that point, I did find it difficult to try and keep a logical head on when I just wanted to fill at people who had failed in their jobs. But that's part of this as well, part of what we do. I think because we're not strictly fan media, Josh, we've kind of got to, and we represent a company, etc. We can't just let it all go. We can't just start slagging people for slagging people's sake. I think what we try to do is have information that backs up the opinions that we have, and that's what we're kind of trying to do on this channel. But it can be difficult at times because we care so deeply about Celtic. I mean, I love Celtic, and I've always loved Celtic, and I've had very emotional highs with Celtic and emotional lows. So it can be difficult, but it's part of the job, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's just about being professional, isn't it? You can't come on here and slate people too much or show too much emotion. But I mean, obviously, the guy who answered the question obviously hasn't seen myself watch a Celtic match. I'm one of the most stressed people in the world watching games of football. I think my dad has even said to me, I hate watching the games at home with you because I just talk too much and criticise people too much. But no, come on here, just very logical, keep the head, be professional. Yeah, and that's what it's all about.
And it actually helps, I don't, even in my own life and in general, I don't get too high or low about much. I try to stay in a window. I try to keep my emotions in check. That's just where I am at in my stage of life. All people go through that. Rob Lilly saying, what is mental is the YouTubers will be growing their business and profile and reach due to Celtic self-created drama. I'm sure they'd have a plain sailing base and just chat the football. Listen, if I want to just be talking the football, we talk about all the issues because they're relevant, and we kind of try to go what fans are talking about, Josh, as well. We try and kind of talk about what people will be interested in us talking about. So I mean, we could do a tactical deep dive today on what system Brendan Rodgers should be going with. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But there's so much going on around the club that inevitably the stuff comes back to off-field issues quite a lot. And I get, I'm not being defensive about that. That's just the reality of what we do as well.
Yeah, and it's the main narrative that's surrounding Celtic at the minute. It's what supporters want to hear about. I mean, we always come on here and we talk about the supporters are the lifeblood of the club, and especially during the current situation. So it would be a bit hypocritical for us to go off track and speak about something maybe the fans don't want to speak about. So I think that's it's important that we keep to our audience and speak what the fans want to hear.
Yeah, AJ asking, can we call Balikwisha already? I'm assuming he's talking about his signing, whether it's good or not. Is that totally unfair? Yes. I don't mind saying that is totally unfair. It's far too early to be making a verdict on Balikwisha. Listen, I think noting what he has produced or hasn't produced so far is valid, and it's valid to talk about. But in terms of the overall trajectory of the signing and whether it's a good one or not, that's far, far too early. I just need to remind people, and the most obvious example of this in recent years is Nicholas Kuhn. Nicholas Kuhn, I was confused by Nicholas Kuhn for a good wee while. I didn't really know what his game was or what he offered, and it took a few months for him to get up to speed, Josh. And I guess that would be my message: is just everyone just simmer down a bit. I know all the off-field stuff, Josh, has people at a boiling point, but in terms of on the pitch, I think what I describe Celtic right now as is a work in progress. And now, do I think it's unacceptable for this Celtic team in Brendan Rodgers, this stage of Brendan Rodgers' second spell in his third year? Do I think it's acceptable that Celtic are a work in progress? No, I do not. But that's where Celtic are right now. They're at it seems like they're at the start of building something again, unfortunately, rather than kicking on from the strength of last year. But players like Balikwisha will get kind of caught in the crossfire on that along the way, won't they? It's important to just keep everything in perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I think what might be frustrating people a wee bit with Balikwisha is that Tenecte came in on his first appearance and had such an impactful performance, whereas Balikwisha in his first two appearances has not really done much. But I think he'll improve over time, coming to a foreign country, living in a foreign land, obviously speaks a wee bit of English, new team, new manager, and he was played out of position ultimately at the weekend. He doesn't often play on the right wing. He's naturally more of a left winger, and I don't think he's going to get dropped at the weekend. So yeah, it's a tough one for Balikwisha at the minute. But like you say, Nicholas Kuhn's situation is just a marker, and Celtic have got so many games coming up as well. The matches come thick and fast. So I'm sure he'll get another chance to start at the left wing over the next couple of games before the next international break, and then you can, after a couple of 4, 5, 6 games, you can really maybe judge his signing more.
Natalie McMillan asking, is Trusty fit? No, I don't believe he is. I think he's got a problem with his foot at the moment. He's got a pain in his foot, and I think that's ongoing as well, unfortunately. He might be able to play through it on occasion, Josh. I think that's how it's kind of going, but Brendan Rodgers kind of saying that he might need to get an operation on that eventually. I'm not sure what the status of that is. We might get an update from Rodgers on Trusty this week. Because now everything's calmed down around Brendan Rodgers a little bit, we do start to get more questions about the wider squad, etc. So maybe we'll get some of that. But yeah, he's still injured. He's got a problem with his foot, so that's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet with Trusty. I've not really heard much from him or of him in recent weeks. He's not been in training, obviously going by the training pictures, so still obviously out. But when he comes back, I think Liam Scales obviously has that position nailed on at the minute, but it'll be more competition in the squad, and that's what you want, because Trusty last season, when he played really well in the Champions League. That display away at Atalanta, he was really good. Bayern Munich games was pretty decent as well, and he came into his own at that level, I felt. And I think a lot of people's grievances with Trusty was that when he came up against the big physical rough and tumble SPFL strikers, that's where he seemed to struggle. So this season, if he gets games, that's a part of his game that you're looking for him to improve upon. I mean, there was chat over the summer of potentially people wanting Trusty to depart, but I still think he's a player that can improve at this level and do well. But it's just a shame the injury came right at the start of the season, because he was doing all right pre-season, man of the match against Newcastle, if I'm correct. And yeah, it's just a shame that he got injured.
Jason Mudgard asking, so we bought 2 left wingers? Yeah, we did. Celtic did. That seems to be what has happened there. So one of them will need to adapt to a right wing role if they both want to play consistently. And then we'll see what happens with when Iheanacho's up to speed, where Daizen Maeda fits in, etc. There's all sorts at play here. It is quite tricky in that forward area. I think no one's wanting Tinecte dropped at the moment, so I'd imagine he would continue for a while. And Brendan Rodgers is very, very complimentary about Tinecte. Listen, guys, we'll start to wrap it up here. I appreciate today's been a very chat-heavy show. I know some people like that, some people don't, but from time to time we like to do this to get the chat involved in a big way. We've not done it for a while, as I said, so we're happy to get all your questions and comments in. Josh, any final thoughts? I think you're on with Ryan tomorrow, aren't you? Kind of with more building up to the weekend, etc., and any news coming out. We do have stuff up on the website. We've got an exclusive interview with Luis Palma at the moment on the website. Tony was speaking to him. He's moved to Lech Poznan. He's on loan with an option to buy. I doubt he's coming back to Celtic to make an impact, but he's still technically a Celtic player. Interesting to hear his thoughts on where things went wrong for him at Celtic. He thinks it's largely down to injuries, and he maintains a great relationship with Brendan Rodgers. In his words, he had a lot of kind words for John Kennedy as well. So check that out on celticway.co.uk if you haven't. We've got a video up on the YouTube channel regarding the protests on Sunday. So if you are wanting more talk about the protests and everything around it, we did a short kind of mini documentary style video that went out earlier this week. And we're going to be covering this fan stuff extensively on the channel going forward. You know, if we're not talking about it, it's probably because there's not much going on with it. But we do intend to cover that as fairly and as extensively as possible. So yeah. Listen, Josh, thank you. You've got your youth column. Sorry, I should mention as well. Josh's weekly youth column is going up on the website later today as well. What were you talking about in that, Josh? Just to give a wee preview.
Yeah, so speaking about Colby Donovan, obviously his debut at the weekend, expectations for him moving forward in this Celtic side, obviously kind of rounding up the players who were playing the homegrown loanies at the weekend, and there's a full circle moment for one of Partick Thistle's players this weekend, Sunil Sosa, came through Celtic's academy, a really, really good character. Celtic scouted him when he was playing for his high school team. In first year he was captaining them. They won a couple of trophies. Celtic signed him up, went to Belgium, didn't really work out. But yeah, find out more about that in the column by reading it. I won't give it all away. Yeah.
People finding my discussion of tonic wine amusing. Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's a bit early for me to go off and source that, but you never know. You never know these days. No, in all seriousness, thanks for joining us, everyone. Leave your comments below as well. It's been very chat intensive today, but if you've got comments on the state of Celtic at the moment, or any questions you want us to ask in future, if you don't watch this show live, please leave them in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, do all that good stuff. It really helps us. Numbers do help us. So if you're a fan of what we do every day, show us a bit of love. I know everyone in the chat is a subscriber because it's a subscriber only mode. And yes, we'll see you again next time. Thanks for joining me, Josh. I'll see you on tomorrow with Ryan, and we'll be back again next time on The Celtic Way.